Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollywood Matrimony Live. Thank you so much for joining us live on Facebook and YouTube. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter. Go look us up, Hollywood Matrimony. Go like, share, subscribe, thumbs up, share. I don't know what you're supposed to do. Retweet.
We're back at Blakey Manor in our proper studio.
We're back with the hounds all over
we
here.
Survived the blizzard.
The Snowmageddon.
Because we weren't here.
Yikes. Yeah, that probably doesn't.
We're going to talk all about that today.
That probably doesn't make people feel better for us.
No, but we still had stress over the whole thing about our own property.
Yeah, we were just worried about the house because we weren't here.
Friends and everybody going through stuff, so it was kind of stressful.
It was stressful.
It was stressful in a different way because we were nowhere close to do anything about it for anything.
Mm-mm.
If something was to happen, it was just going to keep happening until we came back.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about all that shortly.
A little bit scary.
So if you checked this out last week, we had a little bit of a ghetto show because none of our setup worked the way we wanted to.
Well, we were not here.
I know, but we were on location. We're going to talk about that adventure.
We will talk
today.
about the
adventures.
We
only have 3-4 movies to talk about real quick, short ones. And then we're going to talk about our adventures and give you a little update on how you might be able to plan a vacation out there if you're up to it in this time of COVID.
The COVIDs.
So what we got,
okay, where am I?
Where are we going to start?
We're going to start here.
That's fine.
Let me get my screen all ready because I'm not ready for you just yet.
Okay.
But I'm gonna act screen.
You mean talking about mine first then?
Yes.
Okay. So while she's getting her screen ready, the first one to talk about is, surprisingly, she probably doesn't even realize this, is a comic book film. It is a film that's based on a comic, or I don't know if it was a comic or a graphic novel or either one, by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti. Palmiotti. I never can say his name right. Do what? Right. A book called Random Acts of Violence. And what drove me to this excitement of seeing this film, outside of it being a comic film, which I always love comic films that you don't think are comics. Because there's comics about everything. It's not all just superheroes.
Right.
But when you get stuff like Road to Perdition, the Tom Hanks movie, is a comic book film.
Correct.
Graphic novel. Things like that. I always like seeing that stuff and then realizing that source material is a graphic novel or a comic book. This is one of those things. But the story, the other thing that got me really excited about this is it's not only does it have Jay Baruchel in it, I always say his name wrong too, in it, he also wrote it, or co-wrote it, and directed it.
Nice.
And he's directed some other movies, the movie Goon. I think the sequel he directed. I think he wrote the first one. But I was really excited to see what he did. It's also got Jordana Brewster in it, who you like.
I do.
And a guy named Jesse Williams. The film is a slasher horror film.
Oh.
And the premise is this comic book creator who writes a comic book, obviously, called, and he uses this character that's a real-life serial killer that did all these killings on these highways and whatnot, and he's trying to come up with the final issue, and so they hit the road on this little journey to heading to Comic-Con of some sort, but they're staying at all these backwoods hotels.
This already sounds shady.
Trying to find the inspiration for the thing, but of course, as they're doing this, bodies start piling up again, and different things start happening that start to mimic the comic book.
That's what it always happens.
Craziness ensues. I love this movie. It's just the one that I was watching when you came in. It was on a wah, 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 wah.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what is this 80s thing you're watching?
It seemed very.
It wasn't 80s, but it had a very old school vibe.
I like that
though. I've never read the comic, so I don't know how close it connects it. But there's a lot of interesting twists and turns that they're not surprised so much, but it was interesting the way they did that. It's kind of, how do I mix it up? Got a little bit of Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe to it, along with some aspects of Seven.
Oh, love that.
That kind of thing. Yeah. So there you have the slasher, but there's a story there, but that's obviously directly connected to the comic book, but not in the way you think it is. And so there's a lot of people that are kind of involved, but because it's based on real life crime, you get people that are a little attacking them about it. They either love them or they hate them because you're exploiting the victims or whatever. But it's got some good kills in it. I wish it had a little more punch to it in relation to some of the payoff and stuff. But as a whole, I really love the movie. I know another reviewer, friend of mine, loved the idea but didn't really like the movie. I get it. It is probably going to be an acquired taste. Sorry.
I was like, what was that?
It was kind of an acquired taste, but I really like it. I would like to watch it again. I'd like you to watch it, see what you think of it.
I'd like to watch it.
And it's a movie we're giving away, so if you have a chance, go to our website at
HollywoodMatrimony.com
and enter for a chance to win a copy of Random Acts of Violence. That is on, I think it comes out this past week. Yeah, it's on Blu-ray and DVD now. So
there you go.
I really dug it, and I liked him, and so check it out.
There you go.
Moving on.
Okay. Well, you want to go here or here?
Whichever one you want to talk about.
Let's talk about this that we just watched.
Okay.
We just finished watching this movie like seconds ago before the show.
That's right.
It's the Netflix movie this week, and it's called I Care a Lot. And it has on here everyone that's in the movie, almost. You have Rosalind Pike, Diane Weist, I want to say. Was this Aiza Gomez? Where did we figure out she's from?
She is from Baby Driver and Hobbs and Shaw.
And then Peter Dinklage, too. I mean, amazing.
Peter Dinklage is awesome.
He can do anything. He can just stand there and be amazing.
I love Peter Dinklage.
He's so cool.
And I love Peter Dinklage. Not as much as he's a brilliant actor, and he can play anything. But I always love the ground that he stood. That he refuses to play a role that just is fit for a little person.
Correct.
He's like, I'll play a role, and if that role happens to be a little person, that's fine.
Right.
But he didn't go, I'm not playing these other roles.
Correct.
And he stood his ground. I love it.
Yeah. Anywho, so the
What is this movie
movie.
about?
The movie, what we know from the trailer is this lady goes in and essentially kind of like, how does she do this? She's
She's officially running an illegal grifting scheme.
Pretty much. I mean, she
Crime.
goes through and gets a hold of people, elderly people, and says, oh, I'm now your legal guardian. She throws them in a home, and now she owns all of their assets,
Right.
essentially.
Even when there's nothing wrong with them.
Correct.
Because she has connections with doctors and old folks' homes. And
Correct.
there's all these different places. So it's
shady.
It's a shady scam, but the way she does it all is it's perfectly legal.
Yes. So now this makes me really scared
Yeah.
about us getting old.
So if you've ever seen those, if you've ever heard those stories about people that said they got locked up for years and years in an old folks were home or whatever, and people stole all their money, like, how could you possibly just leave or whatever? This movie is a prime example to show you,
It's scary.
wow, that really can happen, because there's like judges involved. The judges weren't even doing anything illegal. They were just following what the court mandates.
Yeah, because the doctor was saying, oh, yes, their dementia is really bad. They're not able to take care of themselves. And then here comes this lady who's like owns her own little guardianship business. And she's like,
But
is
she's
what
well
we
known,
do.
so they trust her. But in this case, they take the wrong woman.
Correct.
A woman they classify as what they call a cherry, which has no known relatives, no known friends,
All alone,
nothing, and
lots
wealthy.
of money. Yep. And they think, hey, this is it.
Yeah.
Payday.
But we all know this is, and these are the kind of movies I love, when it's kind of like the horror films, when they go in there and you realize, that's one of the things I love, like The Collector so much,
Yes.
is, the guy breaks into the house only to have even worse person break into the house, and so now he's running.
Yes. I love that
this
kind of stuff.
So this is kind of the same thing, as they happen to take someone who was the wrong person to take.
Yeah.
And if that person had been a Hispanic woman, it would have been the wrong Mexican. Thank you. I'll be here all week.
They would have got hit in the head with a tortilla. Anyways, I like Diane Weiss, by the way.
I do
She's
too.
like the best in this movie. She was just in that movie we saw last year, wasn't she?
Which one?
I thought she
excuse
was.
me. The
Yes.
Yeah, with Clint Eastwood.
Yes. Anywho, in this one, she is so good because they get her. You see it in the commercials for it. They get her. She's in the home. She's all like, they have her all
They got her
drugged up and
medicated,
medicated. But she's like, ha, you're in trouble.
When she
'Cause she
starts telling her
knows.
who that came to see her, whatever, then
She's like,
oh.
Mm-mm.
And what I love is it takes a while before you really know everybody's connections. Like we were placing guests.
Yeah,
and we knew what it was going to be.
Yeah, essentially, we kind of knew.
You're trying to figure out the connection to everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and they take a while before they really tell you. But after with each interaction, you know it's getting worse, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse. You're like, okay, this person is not. Her connection is way more worse or dangerous than you might initially think.
Well, and the thing is, the main lady did not she wouldn't like just be like, okay, never mind, like just walk away.
Yeah, there were so many moments that
we were like, just let her go.
It was irritating. It was like,
forget
if you found this, that would be my moment to say no.
Okay.
But if you found this, that'd be my moment to be no.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. She's like, oh, no.
She's like, no.
Like, even to the point where near death, and she's like, oh, no.
It's crazy.
But what I liked was it's an insane journey by all the characters and how it comes together at the end.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's a twist you don't expect.
I was wondering. I was like, I wonder if that has anything to do with anything.
Well, I'm not even talking about that part.
Oh, okay.
I'm just talking about the way
that was like.
I'm talking about the way the main story gets resolved. Resolved
yes,
in an unexpected
you weren't expecting
way.
that at all. Oh, it goes all over the place.
It's a really good movie.
Really good.
And Peter Dinklage is so good.
He's always so good. I like his hair in this. He's got like this cool hair and this cool beard.
He's got a big goatee beard.
It's really good.
It's awesome.
So, anyways.
It is a great movie. Everybody's really good in the movie.
People are talking about this one. They like it a lot. So, it's called I Care a Lot. Yeah, there's a lot of buzz on the interwebs.
Oh, is there?
As I was searching for things. So
it's a great movie. It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. So go watch it. Everybody has Netflix.
And if you don't, then you have a friend that has. They can send.
Well, the only person I know that doesn't have Netflix is like my 80-year-old father. But I understand that.
Is he 80 yet?
He will be this year. I think.
My parents have Netflix, but it's because I gave it to them.
Yeah, no, my parents are scared of the internet. My mom still will not buy anything online. She has me buy it and use my card because she's convinced that someone's going to steal her credit card number.
So she's okay with them stealing our stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
That's family love right there.
That's right.
Anyway. All right. Check out I Care a Lot on Netflix.
Yes.
All right. Now we're going to hear. Whew, this is going to be hard to say.
Yeah. This next
movie, I'm just like, whoo, because I can't say it.
About this next one is this one, even when I was doing articles and stuff about it, I never could get it right. Now I understand what it's called. Called the Mauratanian. But when you look at it, it looks like it says Martian. It looks like it says Mauratanian. It says titanium. It's like you stare at it and you're like, what? And believe it or not, it's a movie. The title was so awkward to look at.
Yeah.
I had no interest in watching this movie.
What the heck are you watching?
Why am I watching the long shot?
I don't know. That's not what's on the screen.
That's what everybody else is probably seeing. You probably did something.
Let me go to the live stream.
Anyway, it's called.
No. What are you watching, babe?
I don't know watching anything.
I think you're watching an old one. Are you? You're not even on their show right now.
I clicked on the one that's our show right now.
Okay, click it. Hold on, we're having technical difficulties.
That's what it's giving me.
What?
I don't know what that is. All right, I'm just gonna keep talking.
Anyhow, okay, Mauritanian.
That's like the lecture.
No,
mine says February. This is an old show. It says February 7th, but that's the one that's showing that's kicking out live.
You are on the wrong show.
But I'm clicking on the right one.
I'm gonna go.
Anyway, tell us what the show's about.
No, it's okay.
I know, but look, I'm clicking on this live one here. For some reason, it's
okay. So the Mauratanian is about this guy. I'm gonna assume it's this guy right here, Tahar Rahim.
Yes.
He is from Mauritania. Okay, it's a country in the Middle East.
It's filled with Martians.
And basically, it starts off where these government officials from his country, the police in his country, they come and they're like, the Americans want to talk with you. Dun, dun, dun.
And
he goes, he complies.
Yeah, he's innocent, so friends like him doing things, and he trusts Americans.
The first thing, I don't want to give anything away. The first thing he does, though, it throws some shade, and it makes you then, throughout the entire movie, question what's happening, because he does grab his phone, and he deletes all contacts, okay? And then he hands his phone over. He goes willingly. He drives his own car. You know, they don't arrest him. They're just like, they want to talk to you. They're looking for your cousin. That's all we know. And then the next thing you know, it's like 4 years later.
Yeah.
And we find out he is now in Guantanamo. He's never been charged with anything, never gone to court for anything. And they have been holding him for like 4 years and that's all we know.
And this
And
is
it's crazy.
based on a true story. And
it is a true story.
Also stars Jodie Foster, Shailene Woodley, and Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yes.
So all the Cumber Snatches are going to be super excited.
I felt so happy watching this movie because people popped up on the screen and I'm like, hey, that's Jodie Foster. And then I'm like, hey, that's Shailene Woodley. I'm like, hey, that's Benedict Cumberbatch.
They show their names all the time. But
no, the actual but I actually remembered actors' names, so I'm going to give myself a little pat on the shoulder. That's because you were in
a magical place.
I was in a magical place while we were watching this.
This is a really weird movie to watch in a Little Mermaid room.
We were under the sea experiencing this crazy movie.
It is. It's really interesting because there's three stories kind of happening simultaneously. You have the main guy's story of being locked up in this prison. So you see him like present time and then jumping back and forth to show what happened to leading up to the confessions and all the stuff they got from him and informations. Then you have Jodie Foster and Shailene Woodley's their case, which is trying to free him, not because he's innocent or guilty, but because he's never been charged with anything. He's been being held against his will.
Correct.
Without any charge. And then you have Benedict Cumberbatch's character, who is kind of counterfighting that to not let him go because they want to keep him.
Correct.
But he's now discovering, and it's interesting because they're all discovering the same information at the same time.
That I thought was the cool thing. So it's interesting. It reminded me a little bit of that movie with
Adam Driver.
With Adam Driver, where there was a legal proceeding with the military.
Yeah.
And so Jodie Foster and Shailene Woodley it takes them forever to get any of the information. And then when they do, it's all black line redacted, like every single thing. But the thing on the other side with Cumberbatch is like he also doesn't have access to the actual notes either. They're giving him some.
And he's actually in the military.
Yeah.
He's like the military
He's
attorney
trying
guy.
to attack. He's prosecuting.
Yeah.
And she's defending, but then neither of them really have the real story. And eventually they get the real information. She gets it from the guy telling her, like, I'm going to write you a letter of everything that happened every day. And he's getting it from the military side. He pulls some strings and they both find out the same information. And it just like, it's
kind of crazy that it shows the reason one of the biggest reasons our country is so jacked up is because we already know from all the stuff that's been going on that the Democrats and Republicans don't work together.
Correct.
But the majority of the military forces, armed forces, don't work together either.
They don't share
the different
information.
levels of agencies like the CIAs and the FBIs and the police departments, they don't share information. So everybody seems to fight each other,
correct,
even though they're in the same country,
correct,
fighting for the same thing.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the story of the Cumberbatch side, which reminds me of during 9/11, I'm remembering, wasn't there something like the CIA had received intel of something potentially,
there was different things that said,
but they never shared it with anyone because it was just hearsay intel, but it could have been useful.
Yeah.
And it comes up a little bit in this because it is kind of dealing with that time period and some of those people, but
it's really dealing with not only the fact that, that people can be charged in this kind of situation. I mean, not charged, being held without any kind of charge, the torture aspect, the abuse aspect, which are not the same things. The torture and the abuse are two different completely things. And then it makes you question, when they give or when people get these confessions, you always hear about these forced confessions and stuff and how people will say anything they want, which it's a true thing. That you put through somebody through a certain amount of things or you threaten something, you can make people tell you anything they want, but that doesn't mean it. And it comes down to they just wanting a scapegoat or something. And it was really interesting to see that level and how the person, the guy, the Tahar Rahim, he carries the movie because he has to have the most physical and emotional and just mental.
And then what they actually put him through is crazy. And it's interesting because from the perspective of Cumberbatch, he was a SEAL. So it comes up, he's like, well, you've been through SEAL training. You know what it's like, the torture and all that. And he's like, yeah, I volunteered to go through that program to understand how other countries may treat us. He goes, but we're America. We shouldn't be doing that to prisoners. Yeah. And so then you see what the main guard, Tahar Rahim, goes through is obviously, since he's Muslim, they start shoving meat and stuff down his face, which he doesn't eat, which that's abusive itself. They actually physically assault him, sexually assault him. They put him in like the weird restrained positions for hours, the music, the cold, the waterboarding. I mean, it's
and
insane.
Here's the thing is there's a thin line of you play with people's emotions, because when it's a terrorist who's killed a bunch of Americans and it's killed people or soldiers or whoever they murdered or done something wrong, your mentality changes of like, I don't care, torture them. But then when you realize, okay, the problem with the torturing isn't the fact that it's the inhumane. It's the fact that torture will get you any information you want, even if it's not true.
Correct.
And yes, there's people that you probably can never break without going to that extent, but there's got to be some semblance of proof to really justify before you get to, like, one of my issues has always been, I don't care. I'm all about torturing somebody if you already know they did it.
Correct.
And you need bigger information. But if you're torturing them trying to prove they did it, or torturing them to try to solve the crime, you're not going to really solve it, because there's so many people that we already know for a fact that are in prison or been put to death that were innocent, that were put there because they were threatened or whatever, and they signed a confession or were tricked for saying, hey, if you do this, you'll get a better deal than this, or we'll go after this person, and they do it to save somebody else. And then you got all the people that are horrifically guilty, and so it's, I get there's that thin line, but there's got to be, like in this case, if they had just charged him with something, there would have never been a problem.
Correct.
But because they just held on to him, it ended up being, 14 years?
Yeah, it's insane. Like, the story itself is insane, and the guy published his letters and wrote a book, and even so part of it got redacted.
Yeah, so there's pages and pages of his book that are printed that are actually just black lines and stuff they wouldn't let him print.
It's insane that he would be there that long. And it's just insane, too, that Guantanamo exists anyway, because they show parts of the court case, and he's speaking, and he's like, when he thought of America, he thought, hey, they're fair, they're just, not like in my country where the police can be bought and they're corrupt. He goes, but then I realized
that's why he went with them so easily.
Yeah, America's kind of the same, and that's kind of the sad realization. And I think that's where kind of our whole, now I get back to more current, like rap culture and all that people don't want to believe that the police can do this, but based on all the movies we've been seeing, and even last week with Judah and the Black Messiah, it was a 60s.
Well, here's the thing: is if you really look at everything that's happened now between the Black Lives Matter, the government stuff, the pandemic stuff, and then you look through history of things like this story and the Judas and the Black thing, and all these different things that happen, it continues to prove that America is not better than everybody else. Mm-hmm. It's all just been covered up better than everybody else. Mm-hmm. We can be better, and I think we should be better, but there's an element of you have to evolve with the time, because one of the big issues with the Declaration of Independence and things like that people talk about, and all the laws and all the things that happen, they're like, okay, these laws were made back then when people had a musket and this, and then they were trying to protect this. That law doesn't pertain to having an AR-15 now. Okay, fine. Then those laws need to be updated. But there's that thin line of, are you updating the law because it needs to be updated, or changing the way we do things because it needs to be that, or are you just doing it to benefit or line somebody's pockets at this point?
Correct. At this point, that's what it is.
Sadly, all this boils back down to money or placing blame. In this case, it was a thing they needed to blame somebody.
They needed
to show that they got somebody, because the American people are going to be angry if they have no one.
Correct. That's what it mostly is.
It is. It's a lot of this just comes down to saying, look, we got them. Let's move on to the next thing.
That's what we always do. Just try to cover it up, move on.
Yep.
It's sad. Anyhow, you have to watch this movie. It is a true story. It's on next
I believe weekend? It is. No, it's in the theaters now.
Is it?
It opened on Friday.
You're on the wrong thing.
Oh, sorry. Hold on, let me go back. I can be there real quick. Hold on.
I'm there. You're
not there. You don't know
You're
nothing.
useless to me. In theaters now and on demand in March, so next weekend.
Yeah, so next weekend.
Please watch it. It's very important that we know these things.
We are sorry about this. I literally changed this battery before the show.
I don't hear anything.
And I hear it. Don't act like you're a crazy woman. She said, let's just pretend it doesn't happen, but it's annoying me. So this beeping here. So anyway, all right, so our last thing, it's going to kind of go hand in hand.
It's a segue.
Yeah, we are going to talk about an old controversial classic film with a guest, but it also is part of our adventure that we talked about last week. So since we have a guest on the line, I'll set this up while you're getting our guest. The movie we're going to talk about that most everybody has heard of, but if you haven't, this will be news to you. Do you have a picture from that movie?
I do.
Okay. Is an old Disney movie that Disney tries to make everyone forget exists, called Song of the South. This movie is wrapped in controversy because of its depictions of African American people during, I think it's post-Civil War, slave. They're not slaves anymore in the movie, but it's right after that.
Yes.
You're dealing with Uncle Remus and Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, and Brer Bear, and all this stuff, the Briar Patch. Disney has kind of swept this under the rug. They pretend it doesn't exist anymore, except there is a ride at Disney World, I'm assuming it's at Disneyland as well, called Splash Mountain, which is a full theme from this film outside.
You go through the Briar Patch.
Yeah, it's a water ride, and then it has a water drop. It's one of those like a splash water falls or something like that. Complete with animatronics of Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, Brer Bear. The only thing there is not Uncle Remus. They don't have any of that stuff there, but it does all the animated elements. Mm-hmm. It still exists, although, and I'm very sad to say we didn't get to ride it. Somebody fought me about it the whole time, and then
we ran out of time.
We ran out of time conveniently. But they're going to be changing it to Princess and the Frog. Yeah. Which I get changing it because they're updating it to a more recent property. Most people don't know this. But she had never seen this movie. No. And we have one of our African American friends joining us today, Mr. Sean, who joined us once before.
Do we need to do that distinction? That distinction? He's laughing.
I did.
That's what I am. I'm the resident African American.
Oh no!
Do you have any sound?
I need sound.
Hold on. He's on. Son, are you on? Your sound on? Because we can't hear you.
I can hear you.
No, not really. Hold on.
Oh boy.
Unmute. I've unmuted.
Silenced.
Say something.
I am singing in the rain.
There you go.
Son, are you on? Your sound on? Because we can't hear you.
I'm on. Okay.
So the reason I wanted to have an African American gentleman on the show was because of the nature of this movie. Now, you had never seen this movie.
I had never seen this movie.
Sean hadn't seen this movie in years.
Right.
I don't think I'd ever saw it all the way through, but I have seen it because I go back and watch pieces on YouTube all the time because I've always found the animated side of it entertaining. But I got a copy of it. It is not, you can't buy it, so don't get excited, all you racists out there. But we wanted to discuss
it's hard to find a copy
because it doesn't exist.
Okay.
There was a Blu-ray release of this movie years ago that was part of like the Disney Club. There was a limited edition Disney Club thing. You had to be a member. You could order it. And then it went away just as quickly as it came out. So, Sean, since you're the guest, and for this, your credentials are
black.
I'll let you say it. I'm gonna let you set up. What is the movie about, sir?
Can we start with the actual DVD copy that you gave me, though? Can we start there?
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about that. So the movie is about postbellum South, in somewhere in Georgia, because they talk about being near or going to Atlanta. And it's ostensibly about a little boy who is kind of made to go to his grandmother's plantation, and his dad's intention was to leave him and the mother there while the dad was doing some business. And he befriends some folks there and starts hearing some stories from this character, Uncle Remus, and things just kind of spin around that primarily. And there's some other characters at play. And it is really, honestly, kind of typical Disney fare, thinking about the movies they've made and continue to make. It's very much in line where the plot's kind of thin. Like there's not really that much of a plot. It's just
no.
And it's a bunch of songs that they wanted to put a movie around.
But it's kind of like Gone with the Wind meets an animated film.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of tone of the characters and the vibe of the thing, you know, and with that infusion of racism thrown on top of it.
It was an intense.
It really, and it is a product of its time. And I have some stuff I want to say about it, and then I want your actual thoughts on it. You revisit it. Then we'll talk about the weird copy I gave you to watch.
Oh, Lord.
And your thoughts, because we have 3 different shades to discuss this. Because we got light, medium, and dark roasting.
Wow.
So
wow. We're kind of the same color, but okay.
Well, okay, ethnic backgrounds.
Correct.
We'll go with that. So here's my thing is I always remembered the film being way worse, and revisiting it with you, I came to realize that I'm white.
What?
I know it's a shock.
You're kind of pinkish.
But I can see the uncomfortable nature of it, but I didn't find it near as racially offensive as I guess it's always been built up to be, in my opinion. The tar baby stuff is bad because of the terminology that was used with that word. But people nowadays that would see it, unless they were older people, they would not even probably get that joke, because that word's not really used anymore unless you're in the Klan or or something like that. And then obviously the way they depict the African American people, all of them always had to smile. They always had to be jolly and happy for everybody. And you know, outside of that, I didn't catch a lot of the other elements, but I obviously wouldn't, because it didn't affect me directly. Before we go to you and your thoughts on the film itself, we'll jump back to Sean, who's over there. So with you revisiting it, since you had seen it before a long time ago, what is your adult stance on it after seeing it?
Well, the first thing I want to say is, before I give my opinion, is that, you know, Black people are not a monolith. My opinion is mine, based on my experiences, my beliefs, my morality, blah, blah, blah. So I am not speaking for all of African America.
I agree.
I
agree.
But,
I agree. That's fair.
I agree.
But what I'll say is, you know, upon watching it again, I was not really that offended by it. The mythos of the movie and the mythos of how racist the movie was, it was a lot bigger to me than the reality of the movie. It was much like I remembered it to be when I had watched it years ago, which is it's somewhat uncomfortable looking at it from the lens of today, the lens of 2021, to see the interactions of these characters. But the thing I have to think about as I'm watching it is, number one, this is the postbellum South. It was after Civil War, after slavery. People who were slaves often didn't have anywhere to go. They were freed, but in many cases, there was no place for them to go to upon being freed. And they, in many cases, ended up working at the same place where they had been enslaved previously, or not very far away from that. And so if you take things like that into context and think about if you think about what the time period that Disney itself was trying to portray in the movie, you know, it's a postbellum South. 2, take into consideration the time frame when Disney made the movie. Disney wasn't trying to be offensive. They were just trying to make a movie about a time period, much like Gone with the Wind, except with music and with animated characters. So me watching it, I wasn't offended by pretty much anything I saw. I wasn't offended by Uncle Remus. I wasn't offended by any of the human characters. The human characters were fine. Now, let's talk about Brer Rabbit. Upon watching it again, I kind of had some issues with Brer Rabbit, and really all of the Brer characters, but Brer Rabbit the most, because he was the most Jar Jar Binksy of all of the characters in the movie. And so I watching it, it was very Sambo, very shuck and jive, very, and that part kind of bugged me, but I'd say it bugged me. It didn't, make me want to write a letter to Disney. It was just more like, damn, like they couldn't just, mellow that character out a little bit. This was made in what was it made in the 50s or the 60s? I can't even remember.
Picture 1946.
Or 46. So, fair, fine. In 46, people making, the white people making a Disney movie in 1946 would perceive black people as sounding like that when they're talking, especially when they're being tricksters. So
and I know that I don't mean to interrupt you, but I know the guy that wrote it supposedly uh, the writings, and I'm going by kind of what I remember reading, maybe not exact, but all of it was written supposedly from writings of slaves and different people that he had gotten from back then. So he was trying to write it in the exact way that they wrote their thoughts or their feelings or whatever in relation to some of these situations is how it was developed, which still doesn't make it okay. But I think that was the understanding was, look, these are directly exactly how these characters spoke and talked. And, given that doesn't mean they weren't being treated right then either. But I think that was kind of the direction it was supposed to go. And what's weird about it is I think a lot of the controversy actually stems more from what happened off screen with that film, because the black cast were not allowed to go to the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
The song Zip-Dee Doo-Dah, whatever the song is, it won an Academy Award for Best Song. And they gave a special Academy Award to James Baskett for that song. And he was I think the first black person to ever win an Academy Award of any kind because of that. So it's always intrigued me that there's so many accolades to the movie, but because of the stigma the movie has gotten from things like what you're saying and its time period and its portrayal of stuff, it still made it this standoffish thing. Because there was even a story of the premiere, the black people cast weren't allowed to be at the premiere. So Walt Disney introduced it and left and refused to stay and watch it because his cast couldn't be there. So it makes you wonder, why are they really keeping it hidden? Is it because of the content or because they're embarrassed of what happened with it?
I think also the fact that they're trying to keep it hidden makes it more taboo. I think it makes it gives it that mystery that people want to investigate. I think if they just left it out, it would be a typical Disney movie that people just didn't think about that much. Like, I don't know, like Black Cauldron.
Any kid that watched that movie today, and you bite your tongue, Black Cauldron is a masterpiece. But any kid today,
he likes it.
Black Cauldron is awesome.
I know you love that one. Okay.
But kids today would find that movie horribly boring.
It's so long.
It's very long. Oh my
God. I honestly didn't remember it was that long. I thought it was one of those. It was like an hour. I thought it was like an hour film. With the little shorts. It had a couple of inserts. And then we saw the cartoon that went on, and I'm like, good Lord, how much of this people do we got to watch?
So much.
Especially for not having much of a plot. Like it comes back to that too. So, like I said, I was more offended by the length of the movie than anything else. I'm sitting there like, dang, like, okay, you still doing stuff? Like, oh, okay, we're still going to talk about this.
Yeah, we're still talking about this.
Well, and Baskett is awesome in the movie. Uncle Remus, he is so good in that movie.
He's sweet.
Like, he's the reason, in my opinion, that movie works.
Oh yeah,
because his performance is one of the things about it that even though we and you talked about this off the show too, about how they always had to make him smile and all that kind of stuff in those old movies. Like, even though he's like that, I didn't get that vibe from him because it made it feel like that guy is just happy. Now, the little black boy, they I don't know if you caught that in that one scene where him and the other boy are standing side by side, and the little white boy's getting yelled at, and they're both in trouble, and the white boy's like this, and the white boy's like the whole time it's like he's not allowed to frown.
Yeah.
That offended me more than any of the other stuff in that kind of aspect. Because I'm like, that clearly was that, mentality that was more insulting. Yeah.
I mean, look, I've seen Laurel and Hardy episodes that were way more offensive than this movie. All right. And so I look at things within the context in which they were intended. Right. Mm-hmm. Was Disney trying to make a controversial movie to offend Black people? No. The honest truth is Disney probably didn't give a damn about Black people when they made the movie one way or the other. They were trying to entertain white audiences. That's all good and fine. Even so, within that context, within the context of what they were trying to accomplish with the movie that they made, they were not trying to be offensive. They were trying to entertain, and they were telling a story from a particular time period that is in and of itself sensitive, especially to today, where we live in, an era of hypersensitivity and also cancel culture, and also people genuinely being offensive. I think it would be hard to watch that movie today by most people and not be offended by it, simply because we're so in tune as a culture to being offended.
Well, and I think there's also an instinct of going into being the culture of automatically offended by everything. Like just the fact the moment you would see Uncle Remus sitting on the log telling a story, somebody was going to instantly be offended by that no matter what. You know what I mean? They're going to mention, say, look what they've done. Why has he got to be that way? You know? And I think that immediately puts stigmas on it. So like we've rambled. You yourself saw it for the first time.
Yeah.
And outside of what you've already said about it being boring or long or whatever.
It was just, I just thought it was really long. And I felt like we kept going in circles of, hey, let me tell you a story about the rabbit. And then we do something else. And let me tell you a story about the rabbit like 5 times. How many times are you going to tell me a story?
That whole movie was about trying to get us to Brer Rabbit and Brer Bear.
Why didn't we just have an animated film about them?
I think it would have been a way better movie.
I guess. I think the things that bothered me just watching it for the first time is
I don't fight in the mud, because that was a horrible fight.
No, is with the your black cast. To me, it was noticeable. Maybe it was the copy we were watching, but to me, it was noticeable that their makeup was painted way darker than the rest of their skin.
Yeah,
like the lady, her makeup. They put such dark makeup on her skin, and her neck was a lighter brown color.
Yes, people.
Like making them really black, very shiny looking, and the rosy cheeks were like big round pink circles. And I'm like, why are you doing this?
Well,
like,
it makes me wonder.
It's forcing that look like, hey, I'm happy to be working on this plantation. I'm not a slave.
Yeah, and it also makes me wonder that time period,
it was so much.
If there was that delusional thought process, and this is my own speculation, I've read nothing about this, of thinking, you know, the way the lighting and everything else is, okay, well, you have this dark skin, so we're going to have to alter your skin to make it work. Because, you know, there's other movies that have come up recently. One of y'all remember who? I don't remember who was it Zoe Saldana? Somebody that played somebody, and they darkened her skin for the movie because whoever she was portraying was a real life person. I don't remember who it was.
I don't remember.
Maybe it was Tandy Newton. I don't remember. It was one of those people
trying to make her darker.
And she's come out now with how she's regrets doing that movie because they made her darker because she was playing a person whose skin was in fact darker. And I'm like, that's a hard one, because if you're trying to make them look like the person, that becomes a makeup thing. But if you're doing it like in this case, well, there's no reason for it, that becomes something else.
And even Uncle Remus, like his face was painted a little bit darker, I think, than normal. And then it was interesting that even though we're free, but we're working on the plantation, that there's still this big segregation thing of like, oh, hey, all of you black people, you have to still go live in your little shacks way out here.
Yeah, they all seem to live just in the woods.
And the little, it's like, why is the little boy out here by himself wandering around? That was my other problem. Like, what's wrong with the parents?
If anything,
like, obviously the dad left.
This movie showcased really bad white parenting.
Yes.
Because a couple couldn't get along.
All the black people knew where their kids were.
Yeah, they were all taking care of their families and kids.
It's the one little white mom didn't know where her kid was. And then
he was being bullied by white kids.
Well, that was the other thing that I was like, why are these hillbilly people on this plantation? I don't understand why they were there. That was confusing.
It's very convoluted.
But on the animated side, the things that bothered me obviously was the tar baby thing. Just knowing that it's called tar baby. But it was literally a thing of tar, so I get it.
I know, but it was,
I don't think kids now would get it, but I got it.
My thought there, and Sean, I'd like to hear your thought on that, but I personally think that was their attempt to take the word back. Say, look, we're going to make a literal, we're taking this bad term, we're going to make an actual tar baby out of it, and we're going to put a spin with humor and whatever, and we're taking this term back and making it not bad. Kind of like, what was it in that Kevin Smith movie? Was it?
Oh, no.
Porch Monkey.
Porch Monkey, yes. When he's like, we're taking it back, so he just tries to use it, but he makes it worse, right? I think that was, in my personal opinion, maybe. That's kind of what I got from that. It wasn't the intent to be racist and make fun of a racist word. It was to say, let's put a humorous spin on a racist term so we can make it not bad anymore. Yeah. It didn't work, but I think that's what they tried to do.
I think you're giving Disney a little bit too much credit for forward thinking. Honestly, what I really think happened was the story of the tar baby was a story that was told by slaves, and they simply adapted it into the movie. That just period. And as is, and the fact that the word tar baby can also be a racial epithet really just didn't matter. Because again, in the 40s, why would Disney care? Why would there's no reason for them to care about the opinions and the feelings of Black Americans at that time and try to recapture, like they were still calling us the N-word. I mean, so like they're not worried about what tar baby means or doesn't mean to people.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Well, the other character I found kind of offensive to me on the thing was the bear, Brer Bear, because he was like your slow one, and the way he spoke and just the way.
In the defense of cartoon bears, most bears in cartoons are really dumb and slow.
I know, but then it makes me start thinking like this didn't just happen to Black people; it's also happened in like
the animal kingdom, apparently.
Well, no. When you have your cartoons that are representing Mexicans or whatever, like you have Speedy Gonzales and Slowpoke, it's the exact same thing. Speedy Gonzales was your fox or whoever. He was like the sly, like let's do this.
I like Slowpoke.
And Slowpoke was the bear. Like so, they did this in every culture. They used the characters to kind of represent what they thought was the culture. Oh, this is how they speak, or this is how they act. So they're offensive all around.
Yeah, and here's my thing. And this is where I separate my thinking on some of the stuff when you're dealing with cartoons.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I'm a cartoonist. I dive deeper into it as an artist and thinking about writing it and whatever. There's this mentality of when you're creating a cartoon that you play on not only stereotypes but things that make things stand out.
Yeah.
So like if I was to draw, one of my big issues, if I need to draw somebody that's in real life, if you don't have something that makes you stand out, it makes it really hard to draw you as a cartoon. If you're somebody that has big ears, then I can make your ears a little bit bigger and I can pull it off, make it look. But if you look at somebody that just kind of looks very plain, it's hard to make them look like anything in a cartoon other than a generic cartoon. And so when they start, I think a lot of them back then, because obviously you don't see it as much now, they took those stereotypes, so it was very matter-of-factly. I'm not saying it's right, but very matter-of-factly, like, okay, this guy has a sombrero, he speaks with an accent, he's Mexican, this guy,
that's all they had.
This guy has, his eyes are slanted, he wears a kimono, he's Asian, and it was the idea of making it very obvious. Because I don't think a lot of the animating designs and stuff were intentionally meant to be racist or meant to be offensive to other cultures. I think it was one of those ill thought out mentalities of that's how you create these characters to make it memorable. You make Speedy Gonzales, you want him to be Mexican.
Yeah.
Now then you take things like the crows in Dumbo.
Yeah.
There was no reason for those crows to be, racist like they were. They were crows. You could have done anything you wanted with them.
They were singing the song.
That's a different discussion. They clearly were trying to make them be something specific. Yeah. And use crows. So that was a choice. And that wasn't an artistic choice. That was a, hey, it'd be funny? That's a different thing. And that's kind of what I think when this movie comes down to the releasing of it. They need to own it, like you were saying earlier. Hiding it makes it worse than it actually is.
Nobody would care.
They need to slap one of those
things
they're throwing on all their movies now. This is a product of its time, and even maybe put a thing out of people that speak on it and say, we're not overly proud of what we did at this time, and here's something that happened along with this movie, but it's our history, and let's put it out there because it exists.
Yeah. I mean, look, Pocahontas is still out there, and that one's, in my opinion, a little worse, given the actual history of what happened with that situation, where she was like 12 years old.
But the adult industry poked me harder.
Wow. I
haven't seen that one. You have to send me that DVD.
It's offensive as well.
Okay, now let's talk about the DVD copy.
Okay. Oh my God.
Since this movie doesn't exist, I have a friend of mine who shall not be named because I don't want him in trouble again. Who has a lot of old movies that have never been released or no longer released, and so he got me a copy of this because I found out he actually has the legal Blu-ray copy that was released. That's how this came up. So I said, "Well, you made me a copy of this," and when I got my copy, he goes, "I found you a different copy." So I guess the copy that Disney released on Blu-ray was not as good as this copy that he gave me.
Wow!
So we're watching it, and it has subtitles. I'll say that first. And then I got a text message from Sean a week or two after I'd given it to him to watch. So I had no idea what he's talking about. These two like to start conversations in the middle. So I don't always know what's going on.
It makes sense.
Not as often as her, but so I just get this message from Sean that says, are these, I don't remember if you said Korean or Japanese or whatever, but anyway, it's like,
Korean.
Is this movie have Korean subtitles? And I didn't know what he was talking about, but this movie is a copy that does in fact have some sort of Asian subtitles. I think it is Korean. And it was interesting to watch that movie with those subtitles.
Oh my God, it was bizarre.
They weren't consistent. Like I think they only showed up during the songs, and so you just be watching this like a normal movie in English, and then they would start singing a song, and then bam, subtitles. And like I'm looking down, going, should I be knowing how to read this, or did I have a stroke?
You know what's really funny is when I was my first introduction to Dragon Ball Z was before it started airing. You know, because for years it aired here in America like at 6 a.m. or something like that. I don't remember on what channel when it first aired here. But back in the day, you could go to a convention, and they'd have all these guys set up that just had lines and lines of VHS tapes, right? And they would have these labels that they weren't even in cases. They were just like the little slip case you'd buy VHS tape in, and it'd have a white printed label that had just the top of it that was popped on. It was whatever movie they bootlegged. It was like, I mean, you could just buy them like 3 VHS for $25, right? And I had ones that I'd always buy were like, I had Jackie Chan, Jet Li, and someone else. I don't remember who it was. And it was just 6 hours of fight scenes. All the rest of their movies were cut out. But my favorite was I had got a copy of Dragon Ball Z. I'd been here, kind of heard rumblings about it. I decided I wanted to check the show out. So I got this copy. The entire thing, it was like 6 hours of this imported, right? It was
crazy.
The audio was in Chinese, and it was subtitled in Japanese. So I still never know what's going on in this show. And I watched that all 6 hours of that, trying to see if I can figure it out. And if you've ever watched Dragon Ball Z, it's hard to figure out when you know what they're talking about.
No idea.
So
You're so weird.
This was not my first foray into weird subtitles.
Oh well.
Anyhow, but
thank you so much for watching the movie and for being on the show today.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully we didn't traumatize you.
And hopefully
I'm happy to.
Did you make your children watch it?
With the longest.
No, I
ever.
watched it alone. I didn't want to subject anybody else to it, just in case they were hyper offended, because they're children of the 2000s.
Yeah, everybody's offended.
Fair enough.
They may not have even gotten it.
All right. Well, we thank you for joining us, because we're going to segue that into the happy journeys of Disney
happy,
times.
Happy to be your African American.
Bye.
So with all that being said, we also want to talk about, we used that movie. We were going to talk about that while we were at Disney, but obviously things weren't working out right. So we want to segue into, not so much talking about movie, but let's talk about Disney during the time of COVID and our journey.
Oh my gosh, hold on. We're being kicked out.
So we've been trying to make this trip since December. Various reasons we weren't able to, so we finally got to make the trip. Most people know that there was like this snowpocalypse 2021 happened last week. Are you trying to kick him up? We happened to leave on Sunday right as all this stuff was starting.
Yeah.
Barely got out of town. We had promised to do some live streams and things like this from there. I personally opted not to do any live streams because of what was going on at home. Because I thought it would be insulting. Because there were people in, we don't know how many different places, but people didn't have power for days.
No, like we didn't have power here Monday. Well, just so you know, from our side, we were freaking out about the house because we're like, oh my God, there's no power.
Yeah, we had no one
like,
here.
what if our pipes busted? No one can get here because all the roads were frozen solid. So we were kind of freaking out.
No one was able to come to our house and check
stressful.
anything until like Friday. And thanks to my daughter and to Wendy for checking on things for us when they finally could. But we were stressing out on our friends and family, on everything. So we
we were having to call our parents, and then their phones are dying, and we're like, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
Like your mom was freaked. I was worried about your mom.
Yeah, my mom's on oxygen, so we were worried about her.
And their power was out for like 2 days.
Yeah, her tanks running out of her portable tanks. And, anyway, so we were stressing out, despite the fact that we were in Florida in nice weather on Disney. But we're not talking about that. That's why we didn't do any of the promised live
Updates.
streams and stuff because
We didn't want to be rude.
we didn't want to make it look like, "Hi, y'all are freezing. We're in sunny temperatures, having a good time." We were, but we don't want to post that online. Now that everything's semi back to normal, we want to talk about. So I had a lot of people concerned when we were going about dealing with the fact that we're still in a pandemic and COVID, and how is Disney at this time? And there's tons of videos about it. So we're going to talk about a little of our experiences. We're not going to drone on and on and on about it.
No.
And also talk about some of the fun stuff. So
Yes. It was cool. It was interesting. They do take your temperature as you walk into the parks.
Mhm.
They do have, for all the lines, marked out like the 6 feet apart. They want you to stand with your group 6 feet apart from the others. And they do enforce the masks. And if one of the cast members there sees you like not wearing your mask,
they were like
properly,
mask ninjas.
they're like, you need to pull your mask up.
I saw cast members yell at kids.
Mm-hmm.
I saw them yelling at adults, and they don't like. They were like they would appear out of nowhere.
Yes.
Like you'd be standing there, and you see a guy with like his mask maybe pulled down slightly, and I was like, "Bing! Put your mask on."
Yeah.
You know, and they have a zero tolerance policy. It's like you wear it properly over your mouth, over your nose. You can't have ones with the filters. You can't have. It's got to be a standard mask. You can't wear a scarf.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whatever. And if you don't do it, you're out. The end.
So that I did like. I wish there had been more enforcement, I guess, of the social distancing, because some people were just up on top of you.
Yeah,
like, even though the lines were
it was held well in the lines, except for when you got the lines that got really long.
Yes.
When they ran out of the markers. When the markers were there, most people stuck fairly well to the markers.
The best to do with the markers are children. So thank you, children, because they're used to lining up on lines at school.
Yeah, it was surprising.
They're the best.
Yes, of course, there was a bunch of the bad kids you see.
Yeah,
but it was an intriguing social experiment of looking around and seeing that the worst people social distancing that know the rules and understand the rules were the adults. The kids were standing where they needed to. They stood in the lines they needed to. They followed the lines when it said to stop, where to stand. And I saw numerous ones of them telling their parents, "You need to stand here."
Yeah, like stand on the line.
You know?
And then there were some that were like crazy obsessed about the lines.
Yeah, there was some.
Like they were skipping and then waiting way back here. And I'm like, why is this line not moving? It's because they're skipping 2 or 3.
They have like seven spaces ahead of them.
It's like, it's okay. You're okay.
So anyway,
that part I think worked really well.
Yeah, the buses have partition things set up. The lines you would think would take longer to get through everything because of the lines are longer.
They're long
because of the social distancing.
Spread out.
But we didn't wait any more than an hour for anything for the entire week.
Correct.
And that was only for the 2 Avatar rides. And those are still 2 of the longest ones outside of the Mickey Railway ride, I think, in the entire park.
Right.
And Peter Pan.
I don't know why. Here's the thing. We've been maybe, 5 times?
Yeah, we've been.
The first 2 or 3 times, we were never able to get on Peter Pan because the line was so freaking long.
It's not that good of a ride. I don't understand. It's dumb. It's the same as Little Mermaid. It's the same as Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, you're right around
in
the little park doing this.
It's all those same rides. Those have all the exact same format.
It's the most ridiculous thing. And so this time, we could have been in line. I passed it out of just anger. I'm like, no, Peter Pan's dumb. He's not.
The biggest new thing outside of Avatar, which has been there for a little while now, the biggest new thing for us was Galaxy's Edge.
Yes.
Which is not just a new ride. It is a whole new park
experience.
Section. And one of the things the other thing that kind of might upset some people if you go now is the way you eat there is different. The way you shop is different.
Yes.
Most of the shops, there are a few, but most of them you can't just go in there and shop. There are lines to go into every store.
Because they're counting the number of people in the space.
Yeah, and the same thing is said for food. You can't just walk up to most kiosks. When you got the banana and the popsicle, were you able to walk up to that one, or did you have to mobile order that too?
No, I was able to walk. So the stands, just the food carts, those you can walk up to, but you do have to wait in line, social distance.
And there's not very many of those food carts out there.
There's not. Not anymore.
We were trying to find a churro in Frontierland, and we didn't find a single churro.
They was all closed down. All of those things. There was only one at the very front of the park, and even so, I was like 7th in line. But the lines are way back here. You think it's a huge line, and it's not. It's just that they're social distance.
And if you want to eat at any of the places, like we ate at one of the barbecue places or whatever, you have to scan the menu. You have to do a whole thing through the app.
You have to mobile order ahead of time.
Then you got to tell them what time it's available, and sometimes they'll tell you when it's available to pick up.
They give you windows, and then you say when you're ready. You say, "Okay, I'm here, I'm ready," and then they start making your food.
One of the biggest things we recommend that she did for us that worked out really good is if you want to go to any of the fancy restaurants, you need to schedule your reservation before you go to the park.
Mm-hmm.
We went to a French restaurant for lunch on first day. I think it was. Or was the second day we were there, or something like that.
The first day, maybe.
That wasn't at Epcot. That was at Magic Kingdom, wasn't it?
So it was Epcot.
Oh,
so
was it
the
at
first
Epcot?
day.
Okay. We went to a
Which
nice
was
French
really good, by the way.
Yeah, we went to a really nice French restaurant.
Chef
She scheduled
de
that,
France.
and then we scheduled one at Wolfgang Puck at Disney Springs. We're winging it the rest of the time with the anticipation we were going to probably just have to eat Taco Bells or something. But it was fairly easy once you figure out how it works.
It was really easy. Because you just guesstimate, like, okay, this ride's going to take an hour, so let me order my food for like an hour and a half from now.
Yeah.
And then if you get out earlier, it's fine. You just say, I'm ready, and they start making it, and it's ready in like 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, and then we kind of plot out our game plan. You know, a lot of people just go in there and start wandering the park.
We don't wander.
Like, we don't wander.
Don't wander.
We set a game plan, and we check. Now, if you get, what is the app? Is it just called Disney?
It's
My Disney
the
Experience?
Disney Mobile Experience.
Is it called My Disney Experience or Disney Mobile?
It's probably My Disney Experience. But
Anyway,
download the app.
and when you do the app, you can pull up the maps, and it tells you the wait time for every ride. So if you know the rides you want to ride, you can go immediately to those first, wait. Certain rides get slower and later in the evening. Some get more busy in the evening. I think it was like the Jungle... Not Jungle Cruise. What's the Jungle Cruise? Jungle Safari.
Cruise. Well, there's the cruise and the safari.
One of those, what was it saying? If you don't do that one in the morning, then you might as well skip it unless you want to wait all day.
Correct.
Because we got in line for the Jungle Cruise, and then it was like...
The safari.
That was the... No, we got in line for the Jungle Cruise.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
We got in line for both, I think. And
No, we never did the safari. We just skipped it. And remember, we got in line for Jungle Cruise, and we changed our mind.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not waiting on to go on a hot, steamy
Well,
boat.
it was a later time, and that line was not moving.
It wasn't.
So we opted to move. But,
and we went, instead, we rode like 2 other things.
So, but let's talk about Galaxy's Edge, the newest thing. So there's only 2 rides in that theme park. There's the Millennium Falcon, which I don't remember the name of it. Where you basically are flying Flight of the Millennium Falcon or something like that. And there's Rise of the Resistance. Rise of the Resistance, you get 2 chances to ride that ride. You cannot just wait in line for that one. You have to get on a virtual queue. You have one option at 7 in the morning, one option at 1 in the afternoon. Now, when I say those options, that's when you get in the line. That doesn't mean when you're going to ride it. The park doesn't open until like 9.
Correct.
So the upside is they changed it. Thankfully, while we were there, is you could actually get on the virtual queue and try to get you a spot in that queue from your nice, lovely, comfy bed at home, resort, hotel, wherever you're at. And if you don't get it, you get that second chance at 1. The thing is they fill up in minutes.
Like seconds, I feel like.
Yeah, so if you're not fast, you're not going to get it. If you don't get in one of
we're
those
both
groups,
like this at 7 in the morning. I'm like, refresh.
We had our alarm set at 6:45. We got up. I had it set. I was laying in my bed like this. And as soon as that thing popped on, my ninja fingers went to town. And I'm like, got it.
And I was still like, yes, go. And you already got it. By the time I was at the go, you got it.
The upside is
great.
If you attach your bands together with the app, anybody in your group is automatically added to whoever gets it. So she was no longer able to get it because I'd already got it for her.
Yeah, that's why I said when I said go, it's like your party's already got. I'm like, I already got it, and that's when you're like, I got it. It's like, okay.
And then we went back to sleep. So
yes.
And let me tell you, that ride is badass.
It's scary.
It is not scary. It's an ultimate experience ride. It's probably one of the most intricate rides at Disney, I think, because there's like 3 levels to that ride.
It's a 3-part ride.
Because you get on it. I'm not going to give you all the details, but
I got and you had seen a video. I knew nothing about any of the rides until we get on. And I'm like, is this it? Because that seems really weird.
Most of the opening shows for all the rides are shut down. So like you just walk through everything.
Yeah, it's kind
so
of
like
sad.
in Haunted Mansion, there's a thing where you go in there and they're narrating, and then the room starts stretching, and it's just open. So you just pass, and it's really weird because
it's weird.
They're not congregating people. But this one still has a little bit of a congregation section and a hologram and things like this. Takes you into another room, and you're on like a shuttle where you're flying, standing up.
Yeah.
So you're kind of confused.
I was confused because I'm like, man, if this is the ride, people are going to fall down.
Yeah, and then you get off of that, and then you're into something that will blow your mind visually.
It's pretty cool.
Then you get on the ride itself.
And then the ride, oh my gosh, that ride was like all over the place. And we're here and we're here. And I'm like, what's happening? And you're getting shot at. And then there's one moment where I'm like, uh-oh.
It has a smidgen of Tower of Terror element.
Because there's one point where you go up and I'm like, uh-oh, at some point we're going to go down. So I was just waiting for it. I was freaking out. And I thought, was I in my own row? I was in my
You were sitting next to me.
Was I?
Yes.
I don't know. At one moment, you weren't there. Like
I was here. I was sitting next to you.
You were sitting there. There was a space in between.
Yeah.
And because at one moment I was like, and there was nothing to hold on to, so I was just grabbing the back of the seat. I get freaked out by some of those.
It is the coolest ride ever.
It was really good.
The flight of the Navi, or the whatever it's called.
The Navi.
Whatever in the
Flying.
Yeah, the
Flight of Passage.
Yeah, Flight of Passage.
That was really cool.
That was really cool. The Millennium Falcon, you actually literally fly it.
I got to be Chewbacca, and I got to put us in the hyperdrive.
So it's not one of those where a lot of those rides, like if you think about like Star Tours, which it's doing its own thing for you.
Yeah.
This one, you actually have the controls. So you have like 6 spaces in there, but because they're social distancing, we had the entire cockpit by ourselves. So we were just pilot and co-pilot.
We crashed.
And so you have gunners, you have all this different stuff. So like
I should have been a gunner, and you should have been
I was
pilot.
turning this way, she was this way.
You were doing Bobby did a horrible job piloting.
That thing is like
we were going like this.
I would barely move it. I would barely move it, and the whole thing would be like shh. And it's like you're really running. It's like playing a video game.
It is. And that's what I told you when we got on. I'm like, oh my gosh, if we're flying, it's going to be bad because anytime we do any of those little race car rides, I crash all the time.
I honestly thought, though, it was going to be one of those that you're controlling it sort of like most rides are. You were fully involved in it.
You really were.
And before we talk about some of the other stuff, we want to talk about our new cool things that we got.
What did you get?
So other experiences, there's only 2 rides. And by the way, the Flying the Millennium Falcon ride is a normal ride. You wait in line. And there's tons of shopping. There's tons of visual stuff to see. There's also 2 other experiences. One of them is the Build-A-Droid. It is a separate cost. I think it was like $100 to build a droid, and then you can add personal detail stuff. But you go into like a workshop, Savvy's workshop. Is it Savvy's workshop?
No, Savvy's is the lightsabers.
It's Doc Endor.
Anyway, I don't know.
You go build a droid.
Now you're confusing me. I have to go look.
Parts and pick out kind of droid you want. So we both had to build our own droids. So
did we have to?
We had to. Here's my droid. This awesome black droid that we have
here. It's very Imperial.
It is, because that's what I like. And then she built a droid as well. Hold on, I gotta read.
Hey, you know what? My droid's gonna be cuter than yours. My droid's cute. She's a girl.
So here's my guy, and they're fully remote controlled. I've set up the difference. So she has the actual remote control with hers. I've got mine. I'm using mine with my cell phone. And they go forward, they go back, all kinds of.
I can't right now.
Oh, I think my wheels are hitting.
This table's not. Oh! Don't do that.
So anyway, these are our new droids. We built them, custom built. So these are awesome, and you get they're all kinds of colors. You can even build a BB droid.
You can make any color you want.
They also have inside each workshop where you can, yes, thank you, where you can build custom lightsabers, and you build. There's 4 different things to choose from of different types of sabers. I went with what's called an elemental. This is my lightsaber that I built here. It's got I believe that's supposed to be like a Rancor tooth.
Oh, it's fancy.
If I remember correctly. And you get the whole pieces here. Should I take it apart and show the center? No, I won't do all that.
It's a lot of work.
When they give it to you, it doesn't have any of this stuff on it. You just have the seal base, and then it has a kyber crystal underneath here. You get to pick the color kyber crystal you want. It's a whole presentation of them telling a story, and you have to.
You need to turn that thing off. Turn it off.
He's going on his own. So you pick your kyber crystal. It's the whole thing of you have to see which one you feel, and I had a whole plan of what I was going to get, and I ended up getting something else because I was going to get a green one because this is elemental, and then when they said do the one you feel, and I started thinking, next thing you know, I had a red one
because you're evil.
But then you have multiple parts from here and here and here that you choose from that you snap on, and then different end pieces you want to choose from, and then you have your cool blade. I brought my blade so I could put my.
Of course you did.
So, and what's cool is they have these things called legacy sabers. That these blades, the legacy sabers, are actually sabers just like these, but they're from the movies. But these blades are interchangeable with every single one of them. But they're heavy, they're metal, and they're awesome. So I can.
Don't cut me.
So I have my full lightsaber now. I'm feeling special. But they also sell kyber crystals that go with a Sith and a Jedi holocron. Then each kyber crystal color you put in there, it's a different character's voice. But I could actually open this up and put any one of those kyber crystals in here and change the color of my lightsaber blade. So it's pretty cool little fun thing to do. It is pricey. It's another what, $100, $200
Like 200.
to build it, but it's a full experience. They give you a case with it. All this is included. It's pretty awesome, and
It was pretty awesome.
yeah. So, what is your favorite ride outside of Haunted Mansion? Because we all know that.
Haunted Mansion is my favorite ride. We rode that first thing as soon as we walked to the park. We went straight there, and I think they had just started it, so it was really dark, and I couldn't see. So I'm like, you know what? We got to ride it again. So we got out of the line, walked straight back in, and then it was much better. That is my favorite ride ever. I don't know why. There's nothing exciting to it. I think it's just fun.
It is fun.
And I think because we like Halloween and the decorations and all that, I just find it fun.
But that is not your favorite ride anymore.
My new favorite ride. I think the best ride technically is probably Rise of the Resistance. Just the ride itself is really good because you go through the different levels. And yes, and the characters, the the cast members that are there are part of the ride. Like it's part of the experience.
Yeah, you're on a Star Destroyer at some point, and all of them are Imperial officers, and they're kind of snooty.
They are. They treat you badly,
yeah,
which I love. They're
treating you like prisoners. They're like stuck to the wall.
So
quiet.
I think that's that. But now my new favorite ride is Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Train.
Railway.
And
what did I tell you before you got on that ride?
You're going to love this ride is what you told me.
I said, this is going to be one of your new favorites.
Oh my God. It's the cutest. There's so much that happens. It's like you're just going in your little car, but it's so much more than that.
You're on a train.
You're in a runaway train. Yeah. Sorry, I keep
saying car split up and you're
but then the funniest thing is you do the cha-cha and your thing goes
you crash into a room and it's Daisy teaching a dance class.
And I don't know why that was so funny.
And all our cars start doing the dances that she's telling, and she has not shut up about doing the cha-cha.
We're doing the cha-cha. Oh my gosh, that is the cutest ride ever. So that's probably one of my new favorite rides.
You know what? I am still. I think the nostalgia in me. I really love the Bugs Life show and the
Bugs
bear.
Life was so fun.
The Country Bear Jamboree is so fun. It's just such a silly show, and it's not really overly appropriate.
No,
if you hear them talk, the stuff they're singing
about now,
it's not
at all.
But it's such a fun old school show that we don't get enough. It makes you think of like Showbiz Pizza and all that kind of stuff. But it's such fun time. So
it was fun.
But we had a great time. The resorts were awesome. The way I was really impressed the way they were handling all the COVID stuff. It felt very safe. It felt comfortable to be there.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like I was a little concerned. Is this not going to be as fun? Or don't go thinking that it's COVID, so not many people. It's still packed.
There's still people everywhere.
There were still a lot of people. There were still lines.
I think we do like right now. I'm gonna kind of quarantine this week the best I can, and just but I mean, if you're okay being around other people, just know there are a lot of people.
Yeah.
They are doing the best to social distance. They do stop every hour, every half hour to clean all the rides again.
Some of the ride times you'll find that
I think every 30 minutes they clean.
Something like that. It's like every hour or whatever, but you'll get delays in the ride. It'll seem to be moving for a long time. They won't move for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. And that's because they'll run a whole cycle of it with empty dills. To make them sterilize them and whatever. Yeah, and a lot of the rides now have, like Mickey one, they put up the actual plexiglass in between. Mm-hmm. So now they can fill up the whole thing. Where before they were putting just one group together and that was it. But now most of the rides are multi-thing. The only ride that was weird was the Flight of Passage because they didn't have anything separating the people while flying, but I don't think you can.
Well, we could have, I mean, they could have
skipped
a seat, which we could have done, which we should have told you.
Well, I had to skip next to Minnie.
Yeah, but they could have moved down one.
I don't know. But
that ride was really interesting. I think technologically, that ride is interesting. What's the other one where it kind of puts you out there and you're sitting in the chair?
That was the Soaring.
It
was very the same thing.
It was the same thing, but this is way more advanced. And I was watching, so I should be enjoying the ride, but I'm actually watching how is this ride working? And it's really interesting. So the screen on this is ginormous pan screen, and there's a row above us. We're in this row beside us, and there's 3 sections of it. So that means there has to be at least 90 people at one time on the ride. Yeah. I did some calculations. If they fill it up, so they don't. But then I was watching, so all of a sudden the screen is on. So this thing has to open up so quietly and quickly. And then the floor is gone beneath you, kind of.
It kind of
and then I was looking behind us. So I guess when you go out and then the back of the room's doing this as you're flying.
Yeah.
So you're not really, I mean, obviously you're not really flying. And it's just really interesting how they're making the technology work for
That ride
it.
hurt my calves.
Well, that poor Bobby, they shoved you in it.
Well, okay, so you're sitting on it like this, kind of like a motorcycle.
Because you're riding
And
one
you're
of
leaning
the,
on one of the
the
creatures, the
banshees.
Urkins or whatever they're called.
Yeah, whatever.
Banshees. And so you're holding it forward so it has a base that comes up behind you on your back to kind of lock you in. But then your legs are pushed forward, and then it has these things that lock in and push to your legs. Not only are you being held in because you're kind of doing this thing, but they're also kind of pressure plates. So you're feeling the thing
creature.
you're supposedly riding. You feel it breathing. You feel it body
Moving,
like you
yeah.
feel it like if it like coughs or it's taking big breaths or if it shifts because of the way it's flying. So it kind of gives you a full immersive experience. But so mine locked. But I guess it wasn't locked where it was supposed to when it hit my calves. And so the guy came up behind and like shoved my legs in, which then made us wonder, because I have really big calves, so I understood, but made us wonder, like, if you're a really big person, but maybe where it stopped is fine for the bigger person. Maybe because there was space when it hit mine, but it didn't push in. I don't know.
I don't know. But
I don't know how some of those people ride any of those rides.
I agree, because there was one we were trying to get on the
That was the Barnstormer.
the Goofy train, and so we're like, yeah, we'll ride together. And then Bobby gets in, and I'm like, we don't fit. I'm like, we don't fit. Like, don't start.
But we had two incidents like that. Like, we sat in there and we're like, no, I need to be in a different one.
So you moved.
We're trying to get out before it takes off. And then on the dinosaur one.
Oh my gosh, it started moving.
It took off and I didn't have my seatbelt on. I'm like, hold on. What we didn't realize is it pushes to the next guy, and the next guy checks your seatbelt.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm panicking trying to get this thing on before it takes off.
And I'm glad that ride was rough. I don't remember it being like that with the kids.
We've also officially decided that maybe we're finally getting old because
all these rides
felt way more aggressive than we remember.
Y'all, Star Tours was so aggressive this time. This is the first time we've been on the very back row up here, and I feel like, the rows elevate. So this time we're the very back. My feet were dangling, and I think because we're right on the hydraulic of the very back where it's lifting you up and down. Man. And at one point, like I was flying like this, and I was hanging by my seatbelt like this, like a kid. So I had to put my foot up on the chair behind me and grab the armrest. But you're also holding the armrest, and both our arms don't fit. And so then I was going to grab onto you. Oh my gosh, that ride was rough. Dinosaur was rough. It was throwing us all like this.
There was a little girl crying in front of us.
Oh, that was funny. Sorry, she was a brat in the line. So sorry.
No, she wasn't.
She was all over the place. There were too many kids. That's my only complaint about Disney World. There are too many kids. Get rid of, why are they not in school?
Yeah, that's a whole different discussion I have. Like, the ones that are from other countries, you can kind of understand.
I can get that.
But there's so many kids there that it's not on time when it's out of school, so I don't get.
Because we specifically tried to go in February before spring break.
Yeah, if you want to go, February is one of the good times to go because it's not as busy. And it had good wait times. And I'm going to do a cross plug. We don't know these people, but it was a lifesaver for a lot of stuff for us. Was it allears.net?
Allears.net.
On YouTube, if you go to the allears.net, whatever YouTube channel, there's a lady named Molly.
Hi, Molly. Thank you.
Molly was a lifesaver. We have been watching a lot of her videos for the last 2 or 3 months about different things about how to get through this, how to do this food the easiest, how to do this. Here's the worst things to do. We started watching them just for fun.
Yeah.
But we found ourselves the entire week we were there, like, well, Molly said
do this.
And it helped us out tremendously, man. We zoomed through everything.
We did. So, and she gives really good tips. And yeah, if you just go check out All Ears.
Also, another one called Ordinary Adventures that I watched. They do a lot of really good stuff like that too.
Disney Food Blog. They do really good videos as well. It's the DFB.
Yeah, somebody made a mention of us, of some of our posts. Like, man, y'all really planned this out. Like, we did. When we go to things like this, conventions,
we plan everything.
We don't do anything just wander around.
We do not wander.
I will wander around at Walmart. I'm not wandering around at a theme park or a convention. If we're going to something and we have no agenda, like we don't care about riding a ride or we don't care about meeting a celebrity,
then I'll wander.
But if I'm like Celebration, for instance, if we know we're getting autographs and we know when to do this.
We know what time everybody's signing. I need to be in this line. You need to be in that line. Then we switch and go here. We plan everything.
And what that allows peace of mind to finish things, be able to do things, and have tons of free time to do other crap later.
Yeah, because we've always gotten everything we wanted. And then this one, we got everything accomplished that we wanted to.
And the only thing I missed out on was the shopping in the Galaxy's Edge actual shopping court.
Guys,
but that was because the line was so long. They have like this one section that kind of I guess runs through the center of the whole thing, and it's these little alcoves, and it's where the creature shop and the antiquity shop and a bunch of these other little shops are. And the line was so long to get into that. It was like, I just said, screw it, because I'd spent so much money on lightsabers and other stuff that I said, we'll do it next time.
We'll come again.
And it's only like, just so you know, all this is only like this because of COVID.
Correct.
When it's not COVID, all this stuff is just open to wander into.
Yeah, you wander in and out.
I have a distinct feeling that this might be something that stays, because I think it's better controlled for Disney.
I agree.
Because of the madhouse, the way those things are set up. Like, I don't know if you really saw those inside there, how they're set up.
They're so small.
They're like little food hutches.
It's so small.
So it's easy for people to run in there and grab something and walk away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but anyway, we got lucky. I went in this adventure, no intention to get the Rise of the Resistance ride, so I wouldn't be disappointed. We got to do it. Didn't get to ride Splash Mountain, which I really wanted to ride before it changed, but it wasn't completely her fault, but it was her fault totally.
I told you could go. I would wait for you.
We all know, anybody that's in a relationship with a female knows when they say you can do whatever, they all know what that means.
Wow.
So anyway, but we had a great time. Thank all the people that came over and were able to check on our house when they were able to get here. We feel for everybody that went through what they did. Obviously, we didn't have to go through the horrible stuff that everybody went through personally, physically here, but we were stressing out on our house and everything, so we're blessed we got home. And so far
everything's working.
Yeah, so far we're all good, so we're hoping it stays that way. But if anybody out there that we know has issues and needs and things, please let us know. We'll do what we can to help you out.
You can stay here.
So anyway,
you can stay right here on this little couch.
And let's see, what do we got? Contest, right?
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about a contest. We'll wrap this sucker up. Okay, so we got a lot of contests going on. We've got the Swordsman, still, which is the blind swordsman we talked about, giving away. We still got a couple copies of Fat Man. That one's going to be ending probably in the next day or so.
I'm going in the order that they're there.
Oh, sorry. All right. I usually wait for the newer ones later for future reference.
Okay. Well,
anyway, but she didn't do that. So we just added copies of the very excellent Mr. Dundee.
It's so good.
It's just a fun movie with Paul Hogan, and he played Crocodile Dundee. And as I mentioned, we have a few copies left of Fat Man. That contest,
the best Christmas movie ever.
That contest will be ending this week. We have copies of Random Acts of Violence that I talked about at the beginning of the show, which is a great movie. We have copies of Jing Zaya, which is part of the Feng Shin cinematic universe. Nick Za, which is the first movie in the film, as well as copies of Greenland, which is the disaster flick. And coming up that she doesn't have on there because she don't know, we have copies. Oh, let me grab it here. We're gonna have copies of this movie called Crazy Samurai 400 vs. 1, which is a basically single shot action flick.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
This entire samurai film
I've got to see
shot
this.
in one single 77-minute action shot. I don't know if the movie actually 77 minutes or just that one scene.
I don't know, but it's amazing.
It sounds
amazing.
So the whole movie is not one shot, but it does. It says it has
scene.
The world's first 77-minute one-take action film sequence.
That's pretty much the whole movie, though.
Yeah, the movie's 92 minutes, so 77 minutes of this movie is one take.
He's going to be panting by the end.
We'll have giveaways of this going up here this week as well, and possibly a couple of others.
All right. Let's see. Where did my movies go? They disappeared. Oh, my Lord.
Do you want me to do it?
No, I'm going to tell you.
Do it. You want me to do it?
Why? Why are you trying to do it? That's not.
That's right there.
I don't like that.
You want me to talk about my other
Tell me about yourself.
So while she's trying to get hers organized, this week for Blu-ray DVD, we got a few. Then we got a John Hughes 5-movie collection that I'm working to see if we can get copies of it. It includes Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Pretty in Pink, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. What are the other one? Some Kind of Wonderful, and She's Having a Baby. Wrong Turn, the new Wrong Turn movie is coming to Blu-ray and DVD.
Nice.
The Crude, The New Age is coming to Blu-ray and DVD, the new movie. Those are pretty much the big thing. There's a few other random things.
Okay, here we go. We just watched Ferris Bueller.
We do. We watch it.
That's so funny. We just watched it. Okay, so coming out this week. Hold on now. Hold on.
12 years later.
I'm getting there. It's loading. Please load film.
My Lord,
We
you're
watched
so last
that.
week.
Shh. Okay. So coming out this week, let's see. Finally, I've been waiting on this movie forever. Coming to HBO Max, Tom and Jerry.
And
theaters. Tom and Jerry, the new movie with what's her name? The little girl, Chloe
Martinez.
Yes, and a bunch
Michael
of cute
Pena.
people. And my favorite's Tom and Jerry. So I will be there.
I don't have high hopes for this movie because anytime you blend animation and real life, sometimes
it doesn't work.
But it looks like they may have nailed the Tom and Jerry aspect to it, so I'm hoping for the best.
Okay, then this is interesting. Something Video Demand and Digital. Night of the Kings. It's a prison movie of some sort, so we'll have to watch that. Limited.
Cherry is one that, I know it's limited. That's a new Tom Holland movie.
We'll get there next week. Video Demand and Digital. Tiger, but Tiger with a Y. I don't know what it's about, but it's something about drugs. The Netflix movie this week, Crazy About Her. Don't know what it's about, but we'll watch it.
Will we?
We'll, because it's Netflix. Hulu. The United States versus Billie Holiday. Don't know, but I like Billie Holiday and her music, so we're watching that.
Next week, that's not on your list. Nomadland just hit Hulu. If you have Hulu, it's also in theaters. We're going to talk about it next week.
And coming to Apple TV, it's a Billie Eilish documentary. It starts with her family's musical, and her brother did this, her mom did this. So it's kind of just, if you're into her music or her at all, it's a documentary about her. So.
There's also an I don't know if I ever talked about this, but I watched a documentary about 6ix9ine, that rapper that's all that colored hair. I think it's on Amazon as well. It was an interesting. I mean, I still can't stand the guy, but it was interesting just to see his rise and his fall and ultimately becoming a snitch and still being.
You showed me some of his videos.
Yeah, he's the one that whatever guy. Yeah.
We missed this Flora and Ulysses on Disney Plus, so we'll have to watch that. So lots of good stuff actually happened in February.
Still slowly but surely.
We're getting there.
Don't call me Shirley.
All right. What else?
Well, we hope everybody's doing well after the blizzard, apocalypse, COVID, 2021. Thankfully, it sounds like most things, at least in our area, are back to normal. I know some people are just down getting power back. Some people are just getting water back. So just hang in there. We're going to keep fighting through, and everything will be okay, I'm sure, someday.
There you go. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Hollywood Matrimony Live. Thank you for watching us on Facebook and YouTube. Go find us on Twitter and Instagram. And don't forget to visit our website, HollywoodMatrimony.com.
And we'll be back next week with an all-new episode, Hollywood Matrimony, as she says. And don't forget to enter the contest on the website at
HollywoodMatrimony.com.
And tell